Hello, friends. We are in a troubling time when it comes to misinformation. Here at Forbidden Knowledge News, I've always taken an unbiased, open-minded, and responsible approach to presenting my own theories, and the views of our guests do not reflect that of my own. This show is for entertainment purposes only, and any information presented during this show is a live-action role-play scenario. Conspiracies are definitely fun to discuss in a responsible way. My suggestion to everyone that has an audience and presents theories and possibilities should present them as such, and in no way present unsubstantiated information as truth. All that being said, enjoy this episode. Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Moral Bob. First, a couple of announcements. Check out the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, Roku channel, multiple streaming platforms. By watching, it helps us finish production for our upcoming film, Doors of Perception. Get a Rokfin premium membership, rokfin.com/FKN Plus. Get access to our premium content, and always download our audio podcast directly through Spreaker. Booking guests for December. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome Moral Bob. He has been on a journey to truth for over 30 years. He is constantly questioning everything and shares his insights on his Instagram page, Perpetual Skeptic. Bob, welcome. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. Glad to sit down with you, man.
Yeah, glad you could make it. I always enjoy hearing others' perspectives and theories about the corrupt nature of many of our institutions and systems of governance. I believe right now is the time for those of us that are aware to start building a new foundation for new anti-parasitic systems, as well as sharing knowledge, skills, and understandings that can make it possible for us to break away from all the nonsense. And I love the insights you bring into your page. This is your first time on, though. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you've been working on.
So my name's Moral Bob. I got kind of popular for flat Earth stuff as things go, and I've stepped away from a lot of things, but I still podcast from time to time. I don't do mine anymore. I still post a lot on social media just because it's my engagement, my little touch into the fabricated world that we find ourselves in, just as entertainment purposes, really. If I take it too seriously, I'd go crazy.
Right on.
Other than that, man, I have a family. You can see my baby asleep back here. And that's what I focus most of my stuff on. Most of my time and attention goes to providing for my family and making sure they have what they need.
And you've been aware that things aren't as they're portrayed to us through our institutions and media for a very long time, right?
Yeah, I'm 46, so I've lived through a lot of things, and it really started, I think, around, because I'm in Texas, and I grew up only about an hour and a half away from Waco. So when the whole Davidian thing came around, like locally, we heard about the Davidian complex well before the nation did, right? The nation didn't really hear about this place until the ATF started messing with them. So we knew about it. We had heard about it. We knew this dude had some cult up in, and that's what it was called. And then, that's all you really heard about it. It's kind of like the Westboro Baptist, thing where everybody kind of knows about them, but they don't really bother anybody too much, so nobody really worries about it. And when the government rolled in and pretty much just set the place on fire and murdered a bunch of people, I was already like anti-authority at that point in time. But when that happened, I was like, holy shit, they will just murder people, just straight up murder hundreds of people like nobody's business. Like they don't even care. And I think that was really what pushed me to like full anarchy, anti-government mentality as a young teenager. So, a lot of people say 9/11, but mine was well before that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about our current state of society, especially post 2020, where we're currently at now? We just had this recent election. I checked out of politics a long time ago, but I do think that this time around it has some very interesting implications. And I always do realize that no matter who we have in the presidential office, it will affect people on an individual basis on some level. But I've never let who is in a presidential seat affect my happiness or my ability to be successful in life, and I don't think anyone should. But what are your thoughts about everything, especially how things have been going the past few years?
Well, I wore intentionally my government is an Irish shirt. Right. You can get that over at dangerousworldpodcast.com. I think my buddy Ryan Dean makes amazing merch. Nice. But, like I said, I've been anti-government for a long time. I never trust a politician. I don't understand how in society we're still in a very statist society. like how many times do we have to be lied to by these people to like get to this point to where we don't trust anything they say? And it's really weird where we are. I've said for years, because I predicted this election, it happened exactly like I said it was going to, minus a couple things. But I even predicted an assassination attempt and all of that. I predicted this great move to go against this Messiah. And I've said that Trump Messiah syndrome is far more dangerous than Trump derangement syndrome ever could be. Because you are putting a false idol on a pedestal and you're saying that dude can do no wrong and he's going to save us. And that's a really dangerous place to put a human. Yeah. Like, it's a dangerous place to put a god, but it's even more dangerous to put humans on that level because humans are corruptible. All of us are. We all have a price. We all would do horrible shit if the situation arose where we had to do horrible shit. Right? Like some people wouldn't. And that's where the phrase, the meek shall inherit the earth comes from is really, it's the people that stand up. It's the nails, the old analogy, nails get hammered, the nail that sticks up. And so anybody that rises up gets chopped down. You're exposing yourself. And then the cowards that bowed, they're the ones that survive. Right. Yeah. And now we're just at a point to where politicians can do whatever they want right in the open, as long as they say the words their pawns want to hear. I mean, they will just believe anything. And the Trumpers are the worst, man.
Yeah, I consider it a possibility that it could be a massive trap that conservatives are heading into. I can see why the right has been pushed, and people who are center and even left have been pushed more to a conservative outlook because of the insanity that the left has brought and the ideologies that they tried to push on us. But it's like they refuse to see these very blatant points that Trump is indeed part of this elite technocratic system, that his intentions are no better than the other side. And why would you think that it would be any different for this man, that they'd allow him to make the changes that would be harmful to the upper ruling class? It doesn't make any sense why it would be any different now.
Well, he's a billionaire. You think he's not controlled by the people that made him a billionaire? Like, come on. And to the idea that people are moving more conservative, I think the left, I forget who said it. I think it's like Michael Malice. He says liberals and progressives are the same, or conservatives and progressives are the same thing. Conservatives are just doing the speed limit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, all of the progressive ideology gets pushed through. It happens. It all happens. It just, at what rate is it going to be pushed in society? Right? And that's just, I mean, we've seen this progression where transvestites were a hidden culture, right? And now they're reading books to freaking 5-year-olds. And like we've just gotten to this really, really insane point in society where I frankly think everybody's just retarded. You know, like everybody has been dumbed down to such a great degree. And my wife and I were talking about this. It's social media, it's smartphones, it's this technology that's been pushed on all of us that has made the general public just absolutely brainless because they don't have to be, right? There's warning buzzers in your car to keep you in your lane, or when someone's next to you, or, you know, whatever. Your lights come on automatically. Like, there's all of these things that protect the really stupid people in society, and they have thrived to a point to where someone like Donald Trump, a guy that what I've been highlighting recently is that he said on national television that he would have sex with his daughter. Like, he said, this is a guy that said that. Well, he didn't say it in those words, but if you have a partly functioning brain, he's sitting there with his daughter and he goes, yeah, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd totally date her. Wow. Well, you're not going to be, you know, kissing on the cheek and going to church, right, Trump? Yeah. Like, he said on national TV, like, yeah, I'd fuck her. And it's just like, whoa, dude. Like, this is the guy that the right worships at an astounding level.
Well, I find it hilarious that Christians are propping him up as this Messiah figure. He's basically an idolatrous, sexist mobster. You're not going to get in that position without allowance of the lizard people. He's playing his role, basically.
The machine is going to move, right? Like I said, who's in office doesn't matter. The machine is moving forward. The machine can't be stopped. It's like if you're on a roller coaster, right? And in the left seat, there's a steering wheel on the front of the roller coaster. The person that is pretending to drive the roller coaster has no determination on where the roller coaster goes. It's gonna go where it's gonna go, regardless of who's sitting behind that steering wheel. Yeah. Like, they have no control. I used to say little control, but they have none. They're a puppet. That's all they are.
It's the illusion of choice, and that can be related to everything that we're subjected to, especially our food choices, our medical choices, our education system choices. It all funnels up to the same thing, but it seems different on the surface, so that we have the illusion that we're able to choose between this or that, when in reality it's all under the same umbrella and it all serves the same purpose. We're running out of choices when it comes to actual food, like real food, stuff that hasn't been generated in a lab, and they're attacking all the natural shit. So we're even losing the real choices, the real healthy choices that we had, and we're being further trapped in this matrix system.
Well, and that's part of the deception, right? They get you to focus so much on who's sitting behind that steering wheel, so you don't see the rest of the frickin' cars behind the thing that are along for the ride. your EPA, your FDA, your alphabet. I mean, choose any 3-letter organization, right? Like they're all garbage, and none of them are going anywhere. Like none of them are getting off of the ride. They're all coming along. The IRS, the DEA, the ATF, your freaking supposed FDA, your freaking World Health Organizations, all of these things are part of the machine that is rolling forward, and they all want their money too, right? That's all. People need to realize that what we live in is an oligarchy. It's a fascistic oligarchy, and that's what it is, and that's what it'll always be until the people realize that that's what it is and do something about it. I have a theory about COVID. I thought they were going to do it anyway, right? Like I knew that was coming because I've been tracking all of the times that they've pushed these bullshit pandemics, right? When I realized COVID was nonsense as soon as I heard the word, because I had woken up to viruses and vaccines well before that. So I saw that coming. But what we had was like, it's all a business, right? Like there was the biggest wealth transfer ever during COVID. Like Donald Trump was a key part of that the right doesn't even want to. Like the lockdowns belong to Donald Trump. They're his lockdowns. He instituted the state of emergency that allowed states to lock their people in their homes. Without that, there would have been no lockdowns. There would have been no mandates. The government wouldn't have had the authority to do that. And it goes back to the idea that if you allow the government to have special powers in the state of emergency, they will create crisis to get those powers. Like, I'm not a big fan of his anymore because of some flat earth shit we got into, but Larkin Rose, as far as the government goes, is fucking brilliant. Like, anybody can go to YouTube and look up Larkin Rose Jones Plantation. Right. And it's this really brilliant little video that he put together about voting for your master. And that's all it is, man. It's a big business, like huge business. People don't understand the trillions of dollars that are constantly changing hands in these billion-dollar corporations. That's why, you have, the CEO for Raytheon will then become the Secretary of State or the head of the Department of Defense. Like, why do we have these weapons manufacturers CEOs sitting in our War Department? Because that's what it was called before everybody got soft, right? It wasn't the Department of Defense, which sounds all nice and fluffy when we're always on offense. It's the Department of War is what it was called. And that's all it is. Like it's big business, and they're never going to change. You can't vote you can't vote one, even if the idea that you could vote one dude in, right? Let's just say hypothetically, Donald Trump is everything they say that he is. He goes against the system. He is this guy that wants to change things and free us, even though there is absolutely no evidence to back that bullshit up. Let's just say for a second that he is. What do you think that one dude is going to be able to do? I mean, I still think that it's very possible that JFK did want to dismantle the government and it got him killed. And it was the last time they ever had to assassinate a president. But they will do it. And they basically took the entire Kennedy family and commandeered the entire family by killing 2 guys. They murdered 2 dudes and were like, if you don't fall in line, we'll kill you too. And they do. I mean, Hillary Clinton knows how many people that have been murdered in really weird ways or died in really weird ways. It's like over 80 now. Like nobody knows 80 people that have died in very odd circumstances.
And this may be the biggest sleight of hand when it comes to our technocratic surveillance state. We have Elon Musk, who is the champion of technology, who poses X as this freedom of speech platform. You can post whatever you want on there. But since everyone is now gravitating to that, especially a lot of people who are in the independent media, well, what happens when everyone is on X, and then they decide the clampdown begins for whatever reason. Don't think for a minute that the censorship and the canceling of individuals for speaking their voice is by any means over. You look at a bigger picture and how it could all unfold. If he's in control of all our technology, he has all our information, he has everything else about us. All of your information, everything you put online, everything you've ever interacted with is under their control. I'm not saying that it will happen, but it's a concerning possibility.
Do you know where Elon Musk gets all of his money? The government.
Yeah.
People don't even
100%.
understand that Tesla doesn't make any money. He's been getting billions of dollars a year from the government for a really long time. He is literally a government-paid agent, literally. He is not going to go against the machine. He's part of it. He always has. His father was part of it. Like, this shit runs deep. These family members these family lines run very, very deep, and there is no changing it. I live outside of Austin, Texas, and Elon's got all of his shit here, man, and he is just building stuff like crazy. I mean, he is building a SpaceX freaking branch here that does research with tunnels underground, by the way. It's basically a deep underground military base masquerading as SpaceX, because SpaceX is actually just a cover for NASA. That's all it is, right? And to think that Elon is going to save us, or, it's just, I don't understand how we're at a point where people are so malleable still that they're falling for this shit. Like, wasn't it? I think the Occupy Wall Street movement was possibly the last big threat that we gave to the oligarchs. And that's why they co-opted that shit by shoving their fucking deep state agents into that movement. Because, dude, if everybody figured out that the stock market was a scam and money was a scam, and like, everything would fall apart. And my message to everybody is start shrinking your world. Start shrinking it. Don't live in a big city. If you need to work in a big city, I get it, but live in a freaking small city outside of that, an hour, 2 hours outside of that. The commute will be worth it. Trust me. I live in a small town. I am getting involved with the city. I used to think that, the anarchist view, like, I shouldn't have to be involved to be free. Well, the machine is the machine. Like, there's no getting around it. And if you just sit on your hands, you become a slave to the system. You are going along for the ride, whether you like it or not. So you could choose to get involved, or you can choose to just be on the sidelines watching the game get played. Right? So I'm getting engaged with my community. I am networking here. We are meeting people here that can give us things that we can barter with, that we can, have our community here. So when, because everybody's lives are digital now in every possible way. Ask anybody if they know how to get one fucking town over. They're not going, oh, nope, I just put the address in my magic box and it tells me where to go. And that's all this is. That's all this little thing is. It's a magic box that is witchcraft, for lack of a better term, right? Like, it's a crystal screen that tells you everything you want to know. Mirror, mirror on the wall. And if we are so reliant on this big net system, on the internet, on big cities, on transportation, there's this bullshit on the East Coast where it's like, oh, all of these people went on strike and it's going to cause prices to go up, and Trump's going to do tariffs, and that's going to keep us from getting this. Shrink your world where you don't need that shit anymore. Have chickens in your backyard, have a garden, talk to your neighbors, talk to them about what they have, what you can trade with them, what they're willing to do. If they want to grow a garden and you have chickens, trade with them. If you can make bread and they can make clothes, trade with them. To shrink your world where your need to be on the system is smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's, nobody reaching 100% self-efficiency and complete removal from the system, I think, is as close to impossible as it can get.
I think
right?
self-reliance is what it's all about right now, and I want to get
Right.
further into that in a little bit. You mentioned something important that I'd like to discuss is how the agent provocateurs, the assets of the three-letter agencies infiltrate any movement that is genuinely starting out beneficial for humanity and those that are starting to realize things. But what happens, like you said, is these movements get infiltrated by our government agencies and steered in different directions. And then we have a bunch of nonsense. And this, unfortunately, I believe, has happened to the quote unquote truth community as well. And on a very large scale, we're getting flooded with bad information, players who are just out there to muddy the waters and cause confusion. And now we have the big mainstream alternative media voices like Tucker Carlson playing the role of the truther or the conspiracy theorist.
The fucking Rogan is the worst one, man. Like,
Well,
he's huge.
I have many people that will argue to the death with you about this. I don't really have an opinion either way, but what makes you say that about Rogan?
He's been in Hollywood his whole life. Like, he's been turned into a super, super rich person. You don't get allowed to get that kind of power unless they can co-opt you. I'm sorry, you don't.
Now, I agree I'm sure that he gets talking tos before he's able to say certain things or have certain guests. I would think it's impossible to have.
Well, he's changed, right? When he got his Spotify contract, he didn't get more free with what he said. He started restricting himself. He turned around on the moon landing. He fucking started giving way too much credit to a bunch of bullshit. Like, you know, he had fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson on and just basically was jacking him off the whole time. I lost hope with when Bernie Sanders was on his show, and he was just basically like flirting with Bernie Sanders. He was asking Bernie Sanders to have sex with him. Like, it was so gross to see him just drool and fawn over a fucking socialist, like an open socialist. Like, and that's when I was like, all right, I'm done with Rogan. Fuck this guy. Like, and that's the whole thing, right? Who was it? It was like Lenin or Mussolini that said the best way to control your opposition is to be it. You know, so, you know, to think that you could get to a point of influence that you're not either going to be co-opted or killed. And we can look at the 27 Club. You can look at people like Anthony Bourdain and Chris Cornell and Prince that were supposedly all died very close to each other, and Paul Walker. And there's a handful of them. All that died right around the same time, that all were supposedly using their influence to go after the pedophile ring or the sex trafficking ring, you know, and then they all end up dead. You know, like I said earlier, man, the machine will stop at nothing. They will do anything at all costs. They will murder you. They will murder your friends. They will fucking bring buildings down and murder thousands of people. They will fabricate insane lies, like, just to keep you in your slave state. They will never change. And people really don't want to understand how big the lies are. They're huge, man, to a point to where I say, to the most literal degree, I believe nothing. I have a couple of things that I can prove, but way more shit that I just have theories about. I just have theories, but I believe nothing. A buddy of mine says, never hold something so tightly that if you lose it, it ruins your world. Right? Like,
on.
And you can't ever put anything at that point to where you believe it or trust it or have faith or whatever, that it is this thing that when you find out it's bullshit, it just ruins you. And if people could wrap their head around the concept that I could be wrong, but while the machine has been indoctrinating everybody into putting politicians and rock stars and celebrities and shit up on pedestals, they have also programmed everybody to just not think critically, right? Like they've removed all need to be a responsible intellectual person. And so here we are.
I see a lot of people right now that are excited over the Trump victory, that wholeheartedly believe that it's over, that we've won,
Right.
that we're taking all the power back, that the world is saved now. There are those people that will always believe that we have some savior out there, that it's going to come along, or we have some white hats in the military that'll eventually take over the government. We just have to trust the plan. No one is coming to save us. We need to pull up our big boy pants and start relying on ourselves and start rebuilding our own systems from the bottom up. The system, the Matrix, it is fundamentally anti-human and broken, and we're still trying to fix a system from the foundation that is built of shit, and it's never, ever going to work. So we need to realize we need to step outside of that, rely on ourselves, because we have more power than we think. The ruling class would like you think that we can't survive, we can't do anything. We have to rely on them for jobs and money and food, when in reality, we don't need any of that shit. We are more than capable of taking care of ourselves and ruling over ourselves and feeding ourselves. Unfortunately, there's many people who enjoy relying on the system too much still. They don't want to exit the Matrix. They love it so much. So that's why I see in the future, yes, I think a lot of people are waking up, but it'll probably be like more of, we'll have these breakaway civilizations where people like us are going to start their own farms and communities and check out of the system. And then they'll have your smart city people who want to be plugged into everything.
And you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
Like I'm all about it. If you want to go live that life, go right ahead. But don't force me to.
Yeah.
Like, and don't be mad that I don't want your bullshit system. You know, I get a lot of binary thought people that just because I hate Trump, I must love Harris.
Right,
like,
right.
Oh, I bet you didn't say that about Obama, or I bet you didn't say. Actually, I did. You don't know who you're talking about. I did. I bash all of them. But that's like. And that's why I tell people, just shrink your world. Like, you can remove the boot from your neck if you shrink the size of the boot. Like focus on your city, your town, your community, and start doing what it takes to lower the impact of the ruling class in that area on your neck. I live in a tiny town. It's still super rich people that run everything here. But it doesn't have to be, right? Like, and there's a smaller population that I have to get on my side. I don't have to get 60 million people on my side. I could get 1,000 people on my side here, and I'm a force to reckon with, right? Like I can get a very small amount of people, and that's where you got to start, man. You gotta just quit thinking so big. Quit thinking that you have to find somebody that'll run for president or vote the right guy in. Like, go to your city hall meetings. Go to your town hall meetings. Meet your officials that, know your small mayor. Like, get the fuck out of any big city. Right. Like, if you are anywhere between the ideology of me and Chris here, get out of the big cities. Get out of them. Like, it's not going to benefit you. And when shit hits the fan, which it will, you're going to be stuck in a prison. Like, they have made everything to where they can control it very easily. And if you are inside of a big city and shit goes down, because I do think there's going to be a massive threat to the United States in the next 4 years. Inside of Donald Trump's term, there will be some huge freaking thing that happens that is going to get us lockdowns, and it's going to get us more restrictions on the Second Amendment. People will be coming to take your shit. Like, I do believe that that's going to happen.
I did consider that what we experienced during COVID might have been some sort of test for something bigger. I also look at it as I know a lot of people who wouldn't even consider falling for any bullshit like that. So it would have to be something monumental. It'd have to be a huge high impact event that actually has casualties that we can witness for people to really get involved with it. I don't see it working otherwise.
Right. It's going to have to be huge. And I think it's going to be a bigger than 9/11 situation, like bigger than COVID. Because not like when you look at death numbers for COVID, death rate didn't go up. It didn't.
Yeah, right.
Like, the death rate was like 8,000 people a day before COVID. It was 8,000 people a day during COVID, and it's 8,000 people a day now. Like, there was no spike, there was nothing. It was fear tactics. That's all it was. There never was anything, and they threw out this test, and they said, fucking A, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. Holy shit. Okay, now we know we can do that. And I have a theory that I think it was because the natives were getting restless, man. You know what happened that a lot of people don't even think about? Right before COVID, there was a gun rally on the footsteps of the Virginia Capitol building. There was like 30,000 people with guns that marched on the Capitol of Virginia because of some gun restriction that they were going to do. And it was blacks and gays and transvestites and whites. And it was all of these people. It was lower class, middle class, upper class. It was all of these diverse people that were like, fuck you. You're not taking our shit. And at the same time, there was a bunch of uprisings. There was one in France, one in Australia, one in Brazil. There were these big pushes. I think there was one in Venezuela. There were these huge rebellious movements, not just hundreds of people, tens of thousands of people in multiple countries. And they were like, oh, shit. This is a problem. This is a problem for us. And they were like, all right, let's remember that thing that we did. We're going to have to do that now. Remember that test? We're going to have to do that now. Let's pull the trigger on it. And boom, what do you know? It got everybody to shut up. The freaking Republicans were like, oh, yeah, we don't need bump stocks. That's cool. It's fine. Nobody uses them anyway. It's cool. Like, but if Obama did it, they'd be like, no, freaking no law shall be infringed or some shit. They would have been super pissed if it was somebody with a D next to their name. And so people get caught in this duality of political cults. And that's all it is. It's just a cult used to manipulate your brain. And now they've done it to such a level that Donald Trump can do anything. He even admitted it. He said, I could shoot somebody in Fifth Avenue and nobody would give a shit. And he can. And he can also come take your shit. And I think he will. I thought he was going to. So I had one prediction not happen. I predicted that there was going to be some kind of October surprise, which there really wasn't this go around. But I thought for sure that something was going to happen before the election, and Donald Trump was going to support a restriction on guns and get the entire left to shift over to him and vote for him.
I'm going to put my conspiracy hat on for a second. Some believe that the hurricanes were manufactured so that those in those states would be pushed towards a Donald Trump voting, desire to vote for Donald Trump.
Right. Well, I mean, what has happened, right, is that the Biden administration has done essentially nothing. There was nothing big, good or bad that happened, right? The biggest thing that happened was that the dollar lost like 300% of its buying power. Yeah. Like it was an insane drop in the value of the dollar. But most people think that was because of Biden. It wasn't. It was because Donald Trump printed $10 trillion. Like over 85% of all U.S. currency ever created was created in the last 5 years. 6 now, I guess. Since 2018 to now, over 85% of all U.S. currency was created. And that was during Donald Trump's administration. And now we're feeling that, and But nothing happened during Biden except for the cost of things going up and the supposed threat of other things. And it drove a lot of people, and then there was a lot of attacks on Donald Trump, obviously. Mm-hmm. He got accused, he got fucking indicted, and, he got assassination attempts and all of this shit. And it just shifted a bunch of people over to him and got people to come out and vote for him that normally wouldn't have. Right?
Right.
Because they have to garner the support in order to be able to maintain the power. If their support starts dwindling and they can't get the numbers of people that are engaging in the system, then the system falls apart, right? They have to have their political pawns as the majority of people in the world, or at least the sentiment of a political pawn being a majority in the world. Mm-hmm. And so it's astounding. I mean, I always hope I'm wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like I would love to be wrong about every politician that gets into office, every president. Like, sure, I would love that. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, Donald Trump's threatening tariffs now. I'm trying to publish a book, and I had a conversation with my publisher this morning, and she was like, well, we might not be able to do what you want to do because of the tariffs that are going to be coming. And it's like, they're not coming, first of all. They would never do that to China because we get 90% of all of our goods from fucking China. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to happen. But what people don't understand is there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, fuck China. And it's like, who do you think ends up paying for that? You dummy. Like, all of your prices are going to go up. Dumb. Like you think China's going to be, oh, damn. And they're just going to take it in the shorts? No, that cost gets relayed onto the final user. Whoever purchases that product pays for that cost. It's not the manufacturers. It's not the corporations. That's why pay their fair share is such a stupid fucking argument. Like, and we're not going to get out of it. So just shrink your world. Like, just get out of the business of thinking nationally. Like, be an individual. Mm-hmm. Like, be, for lack of a better term, a communist, but in the actual term, community. Like, be communal, right? Like, commune with your fellow neighbors and patrons of the places that you go, the restaurant you go to dinner. Know the owner of that restaurant. Like just gotta fucking stop thinking so damn big. Mm. Like, the world can be this insane, huge place and then daunting to think that you could have any control over it. And you get stuck in this mentality of thinking, and that was the joke with 24-hour news and internet and everything. It connected us to shit that we were never meant. Our brains are not supposed to be connected to all of that. Mm-hmm.
Looking back a couple of years ago, I was really optimistic at the state of mind I saw a lot of people headed towards, where we're coming together, we're starting to realize there's corruption and the corrupt nature of the ruling class. And then last year and the year before, we started to get hit with all the misinformation and disinformation. I had high hopes that people would have been awakened enough to start to realize some of the things we're saying about politics in general and the right-left paradigm and the illusion of choice. But what happened was the left hit us so strong with these anti-human satanic ideologies that people got pushed towards that conservative paradigm because too many people were still in the belief that our political system had any benefit for them whatsoever, that they could have faith in this system, at least on some level. But the truth is, it's still part of the system. And until you completely remove yourself from it, you're going to be reliant on that system on some level or another. So I think it was a very brilliant type of trick that the ruling class played on us to keep us in here instead of becoming more and more aware that the entire system was corrupt. Most people were pushed towards one side of the system that was giving them what they think they wanted, that was throwing them carrots, that was saying, everything will be saved once we get the orange man in office. Now, look, I am open-minded and I'm hopeful, and I will see how things play out. And if things are wonderful and you can actually look at the actions that this man took and connect it to better things that are unfolding in our lives, I'll say, hey, he did a good job. I'll only give him that. But if that doesn't happen, which is what is happened every other time throughout our history, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Like I said, I'm open-minded. I welcome great changes and things that would benefit humanity. But I am also aware of the way things always have been and what happens beneath the surface. And that's why I think that you should at least look into deeper levels of things. Because these clowns believe in the occult. These clowns at highest levels are involved in some sort of weird ritualistic activities. So in order to understand what these ideologies are all about, you have to realize that these people are playing on different levels.
Maybe, right? Like, I love talking about that kind of stuff, that they're fucking, subterranean lizard people controlling the world, or, something, alien.
I wouldn't go that far, but I think there are people who have occult practices that believe in some sort of powers,
So Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is usually the correct one, right? So I love that idea, and I think there's a lot of validity to it. But I try to bring things to the simplest terms. I don't need to go to any of that. What if all of that's just a distraction to get us to not focus on the fact that it's just a bunch of greedy oligarchs? Like, look, all of these people are laughing at us, right? Their symbolism, their pictures, their level of control is so great that we only see what they want us to see. So if we see that they do occult practices and they're part of the Bohemian Grove and all of this, it's because they're allowing it. They want us to think that because they don't want us focused on, wait a minute, why is everything getting more expensive regardless of who's in office? Why is technology growing, but cost isn't going down? Because that's the way that it should be. If you look at economics, right? If I have a sweater from the 70s, or let's say the 50s, you can say that a shitload more work went into that sweater to make it, to package it, and to ship it in the 50s than it did today. And let's say I paid $100 for that sweater in the 50s, and I paid $300 for it today because it's name brand, whatever, right? Why? It has gotten vastly less expensive to produce that sweater. So why has the cost gone up, not down? Because now that $100 sweater should cost me $50 or $25, but it doesn't. And everybody's too focused on the Masons are running everything, and these people are doing human sacrifices, and they're fucking kids and drinking babies' blood, when they may just be throwing that out there just to fucking trick everybody.
Now, what I was talking about is more along the lines of personal awareness, and I'll break it down for you this way.
Okay.
I have experienced the power of metaphysics, the power of the paranormal, the power of suggestion, and what you would call magic. I've experienced it in my own life, and I can see the effects, and I believe in it, and I have a knowing of how real it can be if utilized in certain ways. Now, if I have experienced this, little me that has no power, that I am, not interested in ruling over the world, but I've seen profound effects, not only in my life, but many others that I either associate with or have relationships with, and have been able to witness the effects in a very profound way. Well, if there are people in very powerful positions that are at least aware of an inkling of how the metaphysical world affects our physical reality, and it is my belief that everything originates in these layers of reality that we can't perceive, that what we experience in the material realm is more of an effect of what's occurring there. If there are people that have an understanding of this and the powers of this and how much it can affect reality, I can guarantee they're going to be utilizing it. And what I
Of
was saying is
course.
not so much to be aware that they're doing blood sacrifices and the Freemasons are ruling the world. No, they may have an edge of understanding because they know how this universe, the mechanics work in a different way.
Right. I think they very much either know the mechanics and have the blueprints, or they are the architects themselves. I think this is a metaphysical realm. I don't want to downplay that, right? Like, my thing is, how many people can I reach with that? You start talking about that stuff, and your Joe Blow on the corner, their eyes are going to glaze over, and they're just going to be like, "This dude's a fucking nut job." But if you can show them tangible, logical things, then that gets them to start thinking differently. And then if you get them on the path, then you can go, look, you can also manifest your reality based on the vibrations you put out into the world. Because I have manifested things in life that are undeniable, that I manifested. Like, there's too many coincidences. Either I live in the Matrix and somebody's reading my mind and this is a simulation and they're just doing it to fuck with me, or I manifested things. Those are really the only two fucking options. And to think that there's some watcher watching me do things and then just specifically fucking with me is highly unlikely. Now, I do think that this could also be my personal hell. So maybe it is hyper-focused on me because I'm in hell. I don't know.
That's another thing.
I believe nothing, so I entertain just about any theory that has any kind of logical backing. Right?
That's another thing you said, and I heard this more often now than I've ever heard it before, is there are folks that believe that what we're experiencing now may be what we understand as hell. And I think that could be true, but I think it also could be a paradise on earth. I think it's our perspective. I think it's all based on how we look at things and the way that we interact with and react to things. Now, while we're in kind of woo-woo waters, you mentioned flat earth when we first started.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be what you called a flat earther by any means, but I question our reality. I know that NASA lies to us. I don't believe we're on a ball hurling through space. I tend to look at it more as, I think simulation is such a weak word, maybe holographic reality, something along those lines. But I love to hear the evidence and the insights from folks that are actually making these observations and saying, look, this isn't the way it is. And I think it's important for people to understand this.
Right. So if you stay on the idea of a simulation, a holographic deck of some sort, right? That means computer programming is involved, which I think is why a lot of, writing code and tech jobs are real big. They are perpetuating the simulation and they don't even know it. But if you think about that, what's the easier code to write? Is it a flat world or a curved one? Like, just on that basis alone, if you play any video game, if you go into any software that gives you some holographic deck, if you think about that, all of those worlds are a flat grid because it's the easiest ones to create. Like, whether it's Minecraft or Sims or any of this stuff, it's all on a flat plane because you don't want to have to write the code to curve every fucking thing at a certain rate. It gets annoying, right? Yeah. But again, I go to the simplest things. Like, I try to keep things as simple as possible so I can talk to a layman about it in a way that they can grasp, right? So my whole idea and my whole pitch to people when I am convinced to talk about flat earth, because I've stopped because it's fairly pointless.
Well, thank you for discussing it today.
Is observable reality. Okay. So Einstein, Hawking, Michelson, Morley, all of these supposed great minds, I think they're all idiots, all agreed that there is no scientific experiment you can do to prove that we spin or we go around the sun. There's nothing. So everybody has to stop, like, globe community, stop trying to use that bullshit, because the people you put on pedestals don't fucking agree with you.
Mm.
Like they knew. Hawking called it a stubbornly persistent illusion and wrote a book about it. Because it's this, they were all banging their heads against the wall going, fuck, we can't prove that we move. Well, again, Occam's razor, we don't. Plain and simple, we don't. Okay, so we get rid of movement very easily, right? It's a theory. It can't be held as a truth because it can't be proven. So it's only a theory. So that one's out the window as far as evidence. You got to get rid of NASA because that's an appeal to authority.
Yeah.
And so staying in observable reality is then once you get rid of movement, then you go, there's no curve. Okay. And the easiest way to prove that there's no curve is go to the 10th floor of any office building, any hotel, or whatever. Go 10 stories up. So you're 100 feet in the air. And two things that you'll observe. One, the horizon has risen with you. That wouldn't happen on a ball. Like at a certain point, the horizon would start to fall away from you. And that point would be very quickly, like 50 feet up. The horizon's going to start dropping. It won't drop much, but it'll start dropping because you're on a curve. So as you go up, you're seeing further. The formula for distance of sight on the ball is like, fuck, I'm going to fuck it up, but you can look it up. It's like the square root of 1.5 times the observer's height. So if you have a 6-foot man standing at sea level on the beach, he can see 3 feet or 3 miles. He can 3 miles to the horizon. That's the equation, right? So if you start going up and the horizon rises with you, that's going to first tell you that you're on a flat, motionless topographical plane because you can continue to see the horizon as it rises up. It's perspective. Any artist, if you've taken any art classes, you should be able to understand that. And then the second thing that you're going to observe when you go up 100 feet is that when you look out, and you look at all the man-made structures, all the other buildings, all the other cell phone towers, radio towers, all of these things that are out, and they're miles and miles and miles apart, are all perfectly parallel, and none of them are leaned in any direction. They're all perfectly fucking parallel and perpendicular to the surface of the earth. That wouldn't happen on a ball. It wouldn't. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry, folks. If you've ever built anything, even a doghouse, you know that if you get your cuts just a 1/16 of an inch off, your fucking walls aren't going to line up. Even if you're only going up 2 feet and you're off a 1/16 of an inch on the bottom, you're going to be off a 1/2 of an inch at the top. Like, so any amount of deflection, even because in 1 mile, there should be 8 inches of deflection. So if I have a cell phone tower over here and a cell phone tower over here that are a mile apart, there should be 8 inches of deflection at the surface, which means noticeably deflection at 200 feet up. Most cell phone towers are super fucking tall. They're 150, 200 feet, right? At 200 feet up, that 8 inches of deflection would be feet up. And that's not, like, you don't ever observe that. You don't ever observe that. And then people will say, oh, well, when you stand on the beach, you can see ships sail over the fucking horizon. Well, why is the curve only in one direction? We're on a ball, right? It curves all the same, right? Everything we get from NASA completely contradicts what Neil deGrasse Tyson says. Neil deGrasse Tyson says that it's bigger at the bottom for some fucking magical reason. It's pear-shaped is what he says. But none of our images say that, and you can quickly debunk NASA because their images are just ridiculous. But I just stay in observable reality, right? Like the sun arcs around us. It doesn't just come over in a straight line in a 180-degree pattern. Like where the sun rises and the sun sets depends on the time of year, but it's never 180 degrees. It's never directly across. And that's because it's on a curved trajectory around a flat plane. Now, do we have a dome or anything? I don't know. I think it's flat. I think I have a lot of different theories, but it doesn't behave like a dome, right? Like it behaves like a flat plane above us. And I have a layer cake theory that we have different dimensions up and down, and that the path to those dimensions is where the North Pole is, and that's what gives us our magnetism, our compass. Is that dimension creates a magnetic draw that pulls to the middle, and that's why compasses point to the middle, and we can transverse those dimensions by going to that portal in the middle, and that's why the elites worship that, is they jump between those dimensions all the time. But again, all theories. Those are just theories. I'm muddying the water a little bit, but
it's all good, man.
If you look at just observable reality, there is no evidence that we spin and twirl and curve and all of this shit. Like, there's just not. The furthest picture ever taken was like 200 miles away of a mountain, and there would be like fucking miles of curve in between that. I mean, you're talking 15, 20,000 feet of curve in between the person taking the picture and the mountaintop, and it would be impossible to take that picture. But yet that picture exists. You can go on your phone right now if you have an iPhone. I don't know any other phones, so I don't know how you would get to it. But on your iPhone, you can go to your weather and you can scroll to the bottom, and it tells you the visibility of the day. And sometimes it's like 28 fucking miles. How the hell can I see 28 miles? That's insane. I can't see 28 miles. The amount of curve would restrict it after like 10. Like, right. At 10 miles, there's 60 feet of curve. Like, I can't see over a curve that's 60 feet of curve. That's a 6-story building. It's actually 66.6 feet, if anybody's keeping track of numerology and all of that nonsense, because there's a whole lot of 666s in the globe, coincidentally. But yeah, it's 66.6 feet.
It seems like in the future, it would be impossible to keep this deception going. Right. At least if people like yourself and independent researchers keep presenting this information. Flat Earth only really represented itself maybe a decade or so ago, and really started to become popular within certain circles. And because information, it spreads so fast now, we have this amazing 100th monkey effect with a lot of good information. A lot of people are presenting theories that are very productive and helpful, and it's permeating very quickly and changing people's perspectives, and more people are starting to question this. So I would imagine it would be harder to keep this deception going, especially if we have access to any greater technology than we have now, and we'll be able to start exploring these things ourselves. I guess only time will tell.
Well, and I think that's why, like, Elon Musk is getting propped up now, because everybody knows that NASA is bullshit. Like, it's just getting more and more evident that NASA is garbage, right? And so they need somebody that people trust, that they think is some independent actor outside of government control. And so in steps Elon Musk with his SpaceX. And they tested out multiple billionaires to see which one the public liked the most. I mean, it was Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson that all decided right at the same time to shoot rockets up. And the only reason that they did that was, okay, who does the public trust the most, right? And that's all that was. That was just a test. Because have you heard anything from Jeff Bezos' shit or Richard Branson's stuff? Nope. You only hear about SpaceX. Right. And now he's going to team up with Donald Trump and Space Force. Like, it's all you've got the James Webb Telescope, which is just absolute nonsense. That's putting all of these pictures out there. You have they are just pushing all of this information. But They know. I think everything's already been planned. They plan everything out well in advance. There's not much that comes to the surprise of the ruling class, right? And these are people that you don't know their names. If you think it's the Rothbards or the Rothschilds, you're wrong. Those are controlled people. You know, again, we won't, if we know the name, we are supposed to know the name. Like, the people are so powerful that we will never know who they are. And if you have any leaning towards great resets and the idea that they reset every 200 years, I think it's because there's nothing they can do to stop the Enlightenment from coming. People will eventually get wise of their bullshit, and they will stand up and rise up against. And I think they have just been experimenting on how much of a prison they have to create and how invisible they have to make the bars in order to elongate that time. I think they're trying to make those resets not happen anymore because it fucks them up too, right? Like, then they have to start over too. Yeah. They get to start with all the cards, you know, but they have to restart too. And they don't like that, but they're willing to play the long game. And so I think the resets are getting further and further apart, and they want to get it to where everybody is so brain dead and reliant on the system that they just don't have to do it anymore. Yeah. Or it just gets further and further apart and they're doing them less and less. They may still have to do it, but it gets further and further apart and they can enjoy their spoils for longer.
Yeah. Well, this is such an important time to be discussing this stuff and bringing awareness. More and more people are waking up every day. I am optimistic. I have a lot of hope that it'll continue and we can at least start to build a foundation for when this shit show does fall apart, that maybe we will have something started, you know?
Fingers crossed, man. Yeah. Like, I've got a painting in my living room that says, "Let's burn this motherfucker down." And I am ready for it. Like, I'm just like, yes. I told somebody the other day, I said, the only reason I want Kamala Harris to get voted in is because maybe the gun-toting right will fucking do something. Like, I don't know how people can go, okay, 2016, the election was stolen. 2020, the election was stolen. Let's go vote.
Yeah.
Even though we know that elections can be stolen, we're going to keep doing it. Like, it's the dumbest thing in the world. And I just wanted to see everybody go absolutely insane when Kamala got voted in. I wanted the same thing to happen with Hillary too. I was pulling for Hillary to get elected so shit would just hit the fan. But they've planned it all out. They know what they're doing. These people are not incompetent. They have perpetrated the idea that government is incompetent to make them people think, oh, we just need to get the right people in.
Yeah.
You know, all of these people are just incompetent. Joe Biden goes around sniffing little kids and biting his wife's finger, and he's just an old man. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, that's all. It's all staged, folks.
Even though they may be incompetent, there's a larger blueprint that they're following that makes things work.
Yes, they can be that incompetent, and yet they are incompetent in their favor 100% of the time. The government grows, they all get richer, we all get poorer, the divide between rich and poor gets greater, the middle class gets shrunk. Like it's no matter who's in office. Come on, guys. Fucking figure it out.
Right on. Bob, this was great. I'd definitely love to do this again in the future. Lots more we can discuss. Before we close out, let everyone know how they can find your content.
Yeah, so I really am only on Instagram. I've pretty much been banned everywhere else to such a degree I don't even try anymore. Yeah. And my pages stay pretty small on Instagram because as soon as I get to 2,000 followers, they'll axe my page. But you can find my biggest page is @SpaceIsFakeandGay. And then I have 2 follow-ups that is The Perpetual Skeptic and Everything is Fake and Gay. And I think Everything is Fake and Gay has underscores boxing in that phrase. So, but yeah, I'm very active on there. Hit me up, check out my content, like it, love it. I don't really care. I do it for me.
Yeah.
Like it's my little venting chamber where I can just release my frustrations of the world on, bots that are paid to jump on and say stupid shit. So you can find me there. Other than that, man, I am in a small town outside of Austin, just trying to remove myself from the machine as much as possible, and I suggest everybody else does too.
Right on.
So,
Well, thank you,
yeah,
Bob.
thanks
This
for
was
having me,
fun.
brother. This was a good time, man. I've wanted to
Yeah.
talk to you for a long time, so
Well,
glad we
awesome,
could put it
dude.
together.
We'll definitely make it happen again. And until next time, everyone, have an excellent evening. We'll talk again tomorrow. See y'all
Later.